Hello everyone and welcome back to my Warhammer guides. I am Brady and today I will be starting a new series called Faction Focus. In each episode I'm going to go over a single army talking about their playstyles, strengths, and weaknesses, and which units they have access to that are good. I will also go over how to build a competitive list with the army and which units I think can be used competitively because some are interchangeable and depend on your playstyle. These faction focus videos are only going to be talking about the tactical side of the tabletop game of Warhammer 40k. There won't be any focus on lore or fluff, so I apologize if that's what you're looking for. I'm going to start with the armies that have their codex released, and then we'll move on from there. I will still cover armies that currently do not have a codex, and when they do get their codex, I will make another video updated with that information. So let's not waste any more time, and let's get right into the first faction focus. In today's faction focus, we are going to be talking about Games Workshop's poster boys, the Ultramarines. This will also include every chapter from the Space Marine Codex, but does not include Blood Angels, Space Wolves, Dark Angels, or Grey Knights, since they will have their own codex and tactics. Let's start with their playstyle. For competitive games and tournaments, good Ultramarines play a mobile gunline army. The mobile gunline usually consists of 3 flyers, which are usually Storm Ravens since they have a lot of guns, some Razorbacks with assault cannons that are filled with Marines, and then some Devastators, Dreadnoughts, or Predators with last cannons in the back to provide some long-range anti-tank. They are the only units that don't move up with the rest of the army. They just sit back and shoot with a captain and lieutenant in the middle of them, giving them a bunch of rerolls. In casual games, you can play Ultras as almost any playstyle: melee, gunline, mobile gunline, horde, or mech. Melee is probably the least effective, just like most armies. In a universe where last cannons, plasma cannons, and all kinds of guns exist, melee is not the most optimal choice for battle, but it sure as hell is fun. You can bring some Terminators to deep strike in, or move in fast with some Rhinos or Razorbacks. Again, this isn't optimal for competitive, but in casual games or against unskilled players, these types of armies can make some fun games. Gunline and mobile gunlines are pretty much the same thing, just minus the flyers and add some more Dreadnoughts or even Primaris Marines. Primaris aren't optimal and competitive, but in casual games they are actually pretty decent, especially Hellblasters. For a horde, you can spam a bunch of scouts or scout bikers. This probably isn't optimal either, but it sounds cool as hell. And for mech, you can use Land Raiders, Predators, Dreadnoughts, Razorbacks, and Flyers with a couple of Tech Marines to fill up your HQ slots and repair your vehicles. A lot of people are actually testing mech lists for competitive, but so far the mobile gun line seems to be the best way to go for these guys. The strength of this army is that it is one of the stronger armies in the game when built right, mainly because of Guilliman. It has access to a bunch of good units and probably is the only army where you can't fit everything that is good in a list because you just have so many options. So it's really based off of playstyle and your personal preference. They hardly ever have to worry about morale as long as you build right because of the rule, they shall know no fear. Your army has arguably the best saves in the game, with the majority of the army having a 3+ save. Everything is pretty tough too compared to non-Space Marine armies. The weakness of this army is that it relies on Guilliman to be competitive. If you misplay with him and he dies on turn 2 or 3, you've probably lost the game. Casual play doesn't suffer from this because most people don't bring the most optimal list for casual, so you should be fine without Guilliman, and to be honest, you eventually might want to stop playing with him in casual games because he can be overbearing on some armies and new players. Remember, this game is expensive, so some people might only have just enough units to make a full army, so they might not own any options that can easily deal with a model like Guilliman or Magnus, so always take that into consideration when building a list for a casual game. I still think it's fair to use these models in any game, just sometimes your opponent might not feel the same way, especially if they are new to the game or don't know how to deploy properly, which honestly isn't the easiest thing to do or understand in 8th. Getting back on topic, the Space Marines don't really have any other weaknesses. They are good at what they do, and that's being an elite gunline army. Now it's time to talk about a competitive list for Space Marines. I will go over the units from this list and talk about why they are in this list and what role or function they are going to be used for. So this is your basic mobile gunline for Ultramarines. You can do the exact same thing with every other chapter in the Space Marine Codex, but it won't be as effective as Ultramarines since Guilliman will lose out on his aura that's only for Ultramarines only. So from top to bottom, let's go over all of the units. You can take a captain and a lieutenant for extra support in case Guilliman goes down or in case you have to spread out your forces, because Guilliman can't be everywhere at once. A librarian is for the spell Null Zone. You're going to want to take this spell every game because it's very powerful and can literally win you the game when used in the right circumstance. For the troops, you're going to want to be taking your standard tacticals. In this list they aren't upgraded, but I left open 30 points to upgrade any model you wish in this list. I would still keep the overall list, but you can always add power swords to your characters or plasma guns to your tacticals. This is your personal preference how you spend the last 30 points. But anyways, the tacticals are just here to grab objectives since they have the objective secured rule, meaning they will get the objective for being on it even if an enemy is within 3 inches of the objective, unless the enemy also has objective secured, in which case they'll tie each other out. As of right now, only 3 armies have objective secured for their troops, but with the chapter approved rules, any battle forged army that isn't Imperium, Chaos, or Inari will get objective secured for their troops. But that is what they are here for. Your tacticals aren't there to kill stuff, they are there to grab objectives or be meat shields for your vehicles if your opponent is playing a melee army. The dedicated transports are Razorbacks. These are your anti-infantry tanks. Sure, they are transports, but I don't even care if you start your tacticals in or outside the Razorbacks. The Razorback is your anti-infantry first and a transport second. The assault cannon is great against infantry, especially with Guilliman's rerolls. You can kill a couple squads of guys with 2 or 3 of your Razorbacks firepower with Guilliman helping out. You can also take last cannons on the Razorbacks, but I would only do that in a mech list and only if you're going up against high toughness armies in your local meta. In the flyer detachment, we have a Storm Raven that is mostly kitted out to be anti-tank, but it has Hurricane Bolters to pick off some infantry as well. The Storm Talons are half anti-infantry and half anti-tank since they are both equipped with twin assault cannons and twin last cannons. You're going to want to fire the twin last cannons at tanks while firing your assault cannons at infantry. Assault cannons are okay against toughness 7 or lower vehicles, but it's just more optimal to use them against infantry. And then last but not least is the super heavy auxiliary detachment with the Lord of War, Robute Guilliman. There isn't much I can say about this guy that hasn't already been said. He is the best support character in the game and is pretty close to being the best melee character as well. At 360 points for this model, it's an auto include in almost any Imperium army. I'm even going to use him with my Grey Knights. That's how strong this guy is. Even without getting any benefit for his Ultramarine aura, I still think he's worth the 360 points. He has a 2-up armor save, a 3-up invul, and so unless he gets null zoned or death hexed, he probably isn't going to die. Also, he has 9 wounds, meaning he can't be shot at if there are models closer than he is. So he can almost always make it into combat unharmed. But with this list, if he's in close combat, you're probably in a rough spot. You want to be shooting stuff to death, and you only want Guilliman in close combat if he has to. Overall though, he's probably the most points efficient unit in the game and is an auto include for now, unless he gets nerfed in the future. Some honorable mentions for units you can use in competitive lists: Dreadnoughts with twin last cannon and missile launchers for more anti-tank. They are good because they get your chapter tactics and because they don't degrade if they take damage while all other vehicles like Predators would. This means even if your Dreadnought is on 1 wound left, he will still hit on 3s, move the normal distance, and act as normal. Devastator Marines with last cannons are great for more anti-infantry. It's a personal preference whether you like the Devastators or Dreadnought better. Another good unit is a Predator with 4 last cannons. Again, it's personal preference for which units you like the best. All of these accomplish the same goal, but they are all slightly different, so it's really up for you to figure out which one you like best. They all have their advantages and disadvantages. Other than that, that about covers it for the best units for competitive Ultramarines. Of course, you can play with any models you want, but these are the ones that are the most points efficient and are going to give you the biggest bang for your buck. So that about covers it for this faction focus. I didn't get into the relics or warlord traits because I don't own the codex, so I don't have access to them. But I have done research from ITC events and from my locals to figure out which units are best for the Ultramarines and how to play them efficiently. I didn't go too in depth with the strategy, but that's because you can get that from my other videos. This was just supposed to be talking about the army itself and its units. Anyways, I hope I taught you guys something and I hope you enjoyed the video. Please comment or subscribe down below if you would like more Warhammer 40k content just like this, and I'll see you in the next video. Happy wargaming!